Everyone is always saying that NFT projects need to have utility to be of any value. So we brought on our friend Chris Truman to talk to us about it, and here we go.
All right, y'all. We have Chris Truman with us, who is a badass artist, lives out in California, and is the co-founder and community lead at Creato Ranch. And he comes heavily endorsed by our friend Greg from Basefish Mafia, Wagme Wines. He said Chris is the man to talk to. He's super knowledgeable, great teacher, and he is here to share with us about utility. And I think everybody has a high level understanding of utility, but we're going to dig in a little bit deeper and make you newbies some pros. So Chris, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Awesome. So utility, let's give a high level overview. Tell me, for the brand new newbie in here, what did we say utility? What does that mean?
Okay, well, where NFTs started was that if you bought an NFT, you would have the art object or you'd have the collectible, but that was it. It was just about ownership. Utility came in as a factor where people started innovating and saying, all right, let's give our holders some sort of a reward or some sort of access or some sort of secondary thing that they can do with their NFT that provides a value to the owner.
So providing value to the owner, some of the most overused words in entrepreneurship are like provide value, provide value, provide value. And when it comes to Web3 and when it comes to NFTs specifically, the practical applications of what you can do with an NFT are kind of, I like to say, limited by your imagination. And like Heather and I are always poking around and trying to find small businesses that are like, what are you doing? But like, what are you starting to see pop up and what's maybe overused? Like let me rephrase this question. What's the bare minimum that you're seeing right now that's kind of like, okay, duh, that's standard versus some of the more imaginative things in terms of utility?
Yeah, so the base use for utility might be as like an access point to a party, using the NFT as sort of a ticket, holdership in that way. I think it's gone very, very far beyond that at this point, and people have compounded utility where it's not just holding an NFT and then you get access or early access to future NFTs or parties where you can actually kind of gamify the process where you use your NFT as a sort of a playing card within that game context.
You're an artist originally, right? So
Yeah.
I've heard from our community that I just want to be an artist. I just want to put out work and people appreciate that. And we know that there's a level of, just being a collector or whatever. And I feel like there's a little bit maybe of pressure on artists to kind of come up with an added utility there. Tell us when we would actually need to use utility versus leave that out and just use it kind of as a more traditional route. I like this piece of art and I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, well, coming from the traditional art, I think that there is a fully fleshed out ecosystem that you're a part of. And so it's not like you can just be an artist and live in your studio and, be a studio rat. You've got to get out there and you've got to be social, and there are dinners involved. There are artist talks. There are perks of collecting. I do think that to a certain degree, there is a system that's already intact with the physical art world. And we're finding ways in the digital art world to replicate that, to find connections between the buyers and the artists, and to find interesting ways to engage your base and your audience. So I don't think it's that different. I think that the NFT artists are having to use digital means to do it, because you can't just meet up and have a collector dinner, or you could, but it's maybe not as easy, given that people are all over the United States and the world. So they're being creative in the way that they can build engagement with their audience.
One thing I am thinking about, it's funny that you're an artist. So like Web 2 or just in real life, if I wanted to buy something of yours, it literally was just an exchange, right? Like I could buy it online and maybe you'd mail it to me, or if I lived where you live, I could buy it and I could physically kind of take it home. But what we're seeing as far as the kind of utility aspect is longer term participation, like more of you, more of Chris, more of his future, more of the narrative he's trying to create. So like how important is, longer term participation in terms of how that actually increases the value of NFTs as well?
It's huge. So if you're an artist, the idea that you would just kind of make something and you would sell it and then people would just continue to buy and buy and buy, I think has kind of run into some dead ends for some artists, because other artists are offering, Discord channels where they can communicate directly with the artist. There are meetups, there are parties, sometimes you get special airdrops that come directly to you as a participant. And I think that's the big key with Web3 is that people want to participate on an individual level, and they want to have an individual experience, whether it's with art or whether it's through, these collectibles, or, there are a bunch of other kind of VR based experiences and metaverse. So we're going to be catering to individual experiences moving forward here. And I think that that's the big key of Web3, is not to just put it out there in a general sense.
Chris, I'm going to show you my newbiness here, okay? And share with you how I understand utility as far as like from a creator perspective, and tell me what I'm missing here.
Yeah.
Or if I'm completely off. So I kind of see it in two ways, where we talk about utility, we immediately go to like smart contracts, like something being actually developed from a developer and it's on the blockchain and you're held to that. And I kind of think about that as like PFP projects, huge projects. That's when we bring in the developer and actually create a contract around that, just because of the mass volume around that NFT project. And my assumption is that when we have like smaller projects, maybe just as an artist putting their work out there, it's more of a system of honor there, where if I write into the NFT description stuff, hey, by the way, if you hold this, I'm going to give you 10% off this, or you get access to this or whatever. And it's like, hey, show me your wallet and I'll confirm it like on a 1-by-1 cases. I know that's super messy. That's how I understand it to be. What am I missing there? Or am I completely off base?
You're not missing there. There's a range of complexity that people are employing. So artists who are really savvy or who have hired developers have created smart contracts to deal with some of the kind of base operations, or Web3 websites where you can sync your wallet and it looks at what you have and it determines your level of membership. So there are those complexities that some people are doing. On the flip side, I don't think that should be a barrier to artists being creative with it. You can do a lot of this based on Twitter and followers and Discord, email, direct contact with your audience. I mean, as an artist, you want to be engaged with the people that are supporting you. You're building this brand of you, and in order for you to build that and to get somewhere, you need to build that following. You need to create more visibility. You do your exhibitions, do all the things that get your work out there, and then you want to build up levels of participation so that there's a rewarding factor, that people feel like there's a justification for buying into you.
The rewarding factor that you're talking about a lot of times might involve a very specific group of NFT holders. And if I want to do something for them, depending on the consensus model I'm using, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's proof of work and proof of stake. Okay, that's episode 55. We dive really into that. It's important to know because that's where gas fees and all those kinds of things originate. But Chris, like there's going to be barriers, right? If I want to provide utility, if I want to provide unlockable content or whatever, and I want to address a lot of my holders at once, I might run into a problem. And I know you have a kind of a take on this, and you and Greg maybe have discussed it in terms of proof of stake. What are your thoughts on that, and how artists or project owners should be considerate of that in terms of their investors?
Yeah. So the platform that I co-founded, Creator Ranch, is a Tezos-based platform. It's a mobile NFT marketplace, and that is proof of stake. And we did that for a couple reasons. One is that through my experience of being in the NFT space for since 2018, I saw
2018, dude, you OG.
Unfortunately, those NFTs are buried in some wallet somewhere. Yeah, and it was like pulling legs to get people to buy in, but we've come a long way in a short amount of time. But what my experience is that the tech barrier, the gas prices, the potential damage to the environment, all of those factors are going to influence whether or not the mainstream can get into buying NFTs. The other thing that I thought is that in order for us to get wide adoption, we're going to need to scale to a much larger audience. And Ethereum, while it has its benefits, and I have stuff on Ethereum as well. It becomes very expensive at some point if you want to mint a lot of items. With proof of stake, you can mint an addition of 10,000 for a quarter, and so the barrier in terms of being able to mint quantity, transfer quantity, burn as many as you want is super low, and so that allows for all this fun gamification to happen. And so that's why I think a lot of the projects that have the greatest amount of utility have moved to proof of stake, because it allows for that kind of option where you can have volume, and then you can sort of run them all over the place in terms of transferring, and then burn things down and their challenges without every increment being pay $50 of gas, pay $200 of gas, and that becomes really expensive really quickly.
If you are completely lost on what he's talking about, like, so Tezos is a blockchain, there's multiple blockchains, there's layers on the Ethereum blockchain, and obviously one of the big challenges that we might have, it's kind of like if you're a business and your client asks for a little bit of this or a different scope of work and you're nickel and diming them, it kind of feels like that sometimes if you own an NFT and then you think you're just going to buy it straight out, and then all of a sudden there's a gas fee, and then not only that, but I need to actually wrap my ETH, and that's going to cost me a little bit. And there's all these kind of little charges that make the experience a little bit less fun. And what Chris is alluding to, proof of stake is just simply a different way to buy on a different blockchain that is way more cost effective, way more energy efficient. And that's why I think he's saying, like, the people who want to provide the most utility are also going to try and do that with the least amount of effect on your wallet. Just wanted to give a little bit of background. I don't want to get ahead and act like we're not newbies anymore, Heather. So that's why I had to say that.
He is. And speaking of newbies, a newbie question that has come up over and over and over again is, what happens when someone doesn't follow through on the utility that they established before? Are there repercussions? Is there some blockchain popo? Like, what happens, Chris?
Well, at the moment, it's a little bit of the honor system, and so we hear the term rug pull, and that's what they mean by rug pull. Is there are a lot of these PFP projects that will announce a roadmap that is highly developed and projects out a year, and then their initial sale doesn't go the way that they like it, and next thing you know, they've rug pulled. They've basically taken everybody's money and they've dumped the project and moved on to the next thing. Those holders are just left holding their NFTs, which often end up worthless, and there's no future roadmap. There's no development moving forward.
Just on a kind of side note, I know you developed a marketplace, and one of the things that we've been asked a lot is picking the marketplace, picking the blockchain, and so forth as an artist. I know we're getting off utility for a second, but I wanted to ask your opinion about the pros and cons from going against like a mainstream blockchain and going with someone like with you guys, or creative Ranch. Like, what are some of the pros and cons and things that artists need to consider when choosing which blockchain to build on and which marketplace?
First, you want to decide, just the basic, which blockchain do you want to be on? Do you want to be on a proof of work, which might have a higher premium and it has a little bit more history? And so I'd say Ethereum is kind of the premier blockchain. And so if you're an established artist, or you're somebody who, if you have a good degree of confidence that you can sell the NFTs for quite a bit of money fairly easily, then ETH might be a logical choice for you. If you're an artist that's just getting started, you've never done NFTs before, you want to try things out, you want to maybe make an edition that is very inexpensive and start to build an audience and build a following, then it makes a lot more sense to do it on a proof of stake blockchain like Tezos, because there's no minting cost. You can get in, and if you make a mistake, if you realize that the market is not responding the way that you want, you can burn it, and it's very low cost and it's very low risk. So a lot of artists have come to Tezos, and originally there was Hicket Nuke, was a decentralized platform that started really gaining in popularity last summer, and there was so much experimentation on it and artists supporting artists that it was a really fun platform to be a part of, but it was just very difficult to use in terms of the tech barrier.
One quick follow-up on that, you alluded to it at the very beginning along the lines of like an artist branding themselves or marketing themselves. Like, that's a freaking skill set right there. And we talk about utility, like a lot of utility, it's like, well, I don't give a rat's ass about 50% off your store when you haven't really developed a brand and there's not like some leverage there. And so before thinking about utility, we also need to ask ourselves a question about brand, and is this something that's desirable for the bigger community? Do you have any like just words of wisdom from one artist to a next about just developing your brand? And sometimes it's hard marketing yourself and putting yourself out there so that later on that utility is actually valuable.
Yeah, I've been watching this as a collector, but also as an artist. There's a desire to move at the speed of NFTs, which is lightning speed. And so you see people dropping, every 2 days they're dropping a new NFT, and it's like even with the most robust audience, it's very difficult for them to absorb that. So I think being a little bit more deliberate, thinking about how you are coming into the space and how you're building your audience, and then being consistent. You want to be consistent, because if you're not dropping something for 3 months, then your audience might go somewhere else. But if you're oversaturating your market, then you're also going to run into problems there. So just trying to balance that out and really build some solid connections, communicate with your collectors, and formulate your audience.
We have 2 questions left. One question for you and then one from our community, but mine is on gamification. I'm not big into gaming and like some of these NFT games and earning tokens and staking and all this other stuff. I know that is a huge part of it, but there's other ways to make utility not just like I'm going to give you all this stuff. Now there's contests, there's different mechanisms where you get community involvement, and that's kind of gamification as well. Can you talk to me about what that looks like, simplified for people like me who don't like the kind of traditional things? I know WAGMI's got some things up their sleeve, and maybe we don't need to talk about it yet, but if you have any kind of samples of what you mean by gamification.
Absolutely. So WAGMI Wines is a great example, and it's an offshoot from Basefish Mafia, which I'm a community member. And it, in conjunction with Greg, we came up with this idea that we could create NFTs as labels for bottles of wine. And there's a game quality to it where, we're going to produce an edition, a white edition and a red edition, and we'll sell those. And then the buyers can choose whether or not they want to, keep the NFT in NFT form, or whether or not they want to send in or burn their NFT, in which case they are gifted some wine and they are entered into a raffle for potential prizes. Could be NFTs, could be in real life events and such. And so it's not gamification as in you're plugging into like a first person player game or anything like that. It's just a game in terms of trying to decide whether or not it's worth it for you to keep your item, or whether you want to burn it and to take a chance at a raffle, or get your wine at that point as well. Trying to get people to kind of ride that line and that balance of well, what will my value be if I hold this versus what will my value be if I decide to take a chance at going for a raffle or burning it for the wine, and creating that dilemma. Do people want to buy 3 or 4 to improve their chances? Do people want to kind of stock it away for a while and then see what happens and see what builds with it? And so that's kind of the simple utility that we're talking about, is this idea that as you move forward, the value of what you have continues to grow because the options for what you can do with it become more significant.
This may be a fair summary. Tell me what you guys think. But you ending with that, my first thing comes up is like, there's a lot of dedication from the creators in to make sure they follow through on that, and they organize that, and they make it a very fair experience. So when thinking about utility, I think a fair question to ask is not only what will my community want and be valuable for them, but also too, what is my dedication level to deliver? Because that's another level, I feel like, than some of the more simple basic utilities. And neither is right or wrong, but we have to ask ourselves not only what's valuable, but what are we going to be able to execute on? Because that's a time commitment, Chris, what you were just talking about.
Yeah. So we've got a really great crew. And we've been fairly devoted to the Basefish Mafia for, since launch. And so, for us, this is a long-term project. And we're thinking of it that way, that this is something that we could see ourselves doing, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, and expanding to other brands and other collections, other concepts. So for us, we're all diving in deep. But I do think that there tends to be a kind of a short-sightedness in the NFT community, where it's, a lot of these artists who have not been able to capitalize on what they do are now getting, they're making quite a bit of money, and that's their priority is, hey, let's just get in here and let's make as much money as we possibly can. And I think that they're going to run into problems because it's really short-sighted. But some of these projects have a really long-term vision about building brand and building, IP and building consistent base and also some scalability. And so when you're looking at projects, you might want to think about those components when you're thinking about buying in.
100%. Chris, where can people connect with you online?
Twitter, it's at C Truman. Instagram, it's at Truman Chris. Also Discord, I'm in the BFM community. You can find me there. I go by my name. I'm one of the rare people who use my name out in social media, so I'm very easy to find.
This is a very important question that you're going to have to think long and hard of and take very seriously. This comes from John Wilmshurst. What's up at John_Wilms? He wants to know from you, Chris, if you were at home and the house was on fire and all of your family members, all of your pets, they're safely outside in the front yard in the green grass, but you only had 1 minute to run back into your house and save one thing, what would that be?
Who's listening? If I say ledger, man, that's a tough question, but the ledger would be one of the first things I grab. Save my digital assets.
Rich, bring us home.
Yeah, well, look, everyone, Chris, thanks for being here. And everyone, thanks for listening. Utility is something we're going to continue to hone in on because, like we kind of mentioned, the possibilities are endless. And we're now starting to get to the point where there's kind of like minimal effort in utility, and it's starting to get kind of old and tired. And we don't want that for you. And we don't want you to participate in those projects because there's more to it than that, especially when we talk to people like Chris who are desiring to create something fun and long standing. So we will see you next time. Make sure you check us out and join our Discord. Peace.